The Earl, the Eel, and the Extremely Inadvisable Picnic, as recorded by Lady Cassiopeia Vexleigh-St. James, High Priestess of Petty, resplendent in rage, currently banned from 3 riverside estates. May 14th, 1786, written while dripping wet, seething, and still finding eel scales in my shoe. Dear Diary, if I am ever found dead in a hedge with wine on my breath and a silver shoe lodged in someone's eye, let it be known. It was Lord Rupert Briarly, 9th Earl of Crestmere, who pushed me to the brink. He invited me on a picnic, which, on paper, sounds innocent. But so does arsenic. Let's begin where all disasters do. My idiot husband. Algernon had the audacity to suggest I get out and enjoy nature, after I may or may not have tried to hex his breakfast. I was merely seasoning his eggs with mood-enhancing herbs. If he wept over them, that's between him and his emotional constipation. Enter Rupert. Tall, smug, and possessed of that sort of lazy charm that makes widows lower their fans and debutantes lose their inheritance. He sent a note that read, Dearest Cassiopeia, the sun is high, the river is calm, and my intentions are at least 40% honorable. Would you do me the honor of a riverside picnic? I replied, Rupert, your intentions are rarely honorable, and your reputation is moist. Pick me up at noon. I wore white. Linen, flowing, utterly impractical for anything but drama. My hat had a brim so wide it required its own footman. Rupert arrived with a wicker basket, a bottle of something French, and a suspicious twinkle. This should have been my first clue. The spot was picturesque, in the same way a crime scene is scenic. We rode out to the edge of his estate, beside the winding river called, and I am not making this up, the Laughing Pike. I asked if that was due to the fish. He said no. He said it was named after the sound women made when they fell in. I should have left immediately. Instead, I laid out the blanket. He opened the wine. We exchanged 4 minutes of flirtation, 1 semi-inappropriate sonnet, and half a wedge of brie. That's when he said, Would you care to see my eel? Which, let's be honest, was a trap. I narrowed my eyes. Rupert, I said slowly, if this is another euphemism, I swear on my corset I will push you into this river and keep your dog. He laughed and pointed to a wooden bucket hidden behind the basket. Inside, a massive live eel. Slimy, wriggling, furious. He named it Horace. Wine, diary, then, he asked, would you like to hold it? No, I did not. I am not in the habit of cuddling river serpents with questionable names. I declined, obviously because I have standards. He insisted, and in the act of avoiding him flinging Horace at me, I stepped backward and tripped over a jug of clotted cream, which sent me tumbling directly into the river. Hat, wine, dignity and all. Underwater, I experienced several important revelations. 1, I hate nature. 2, eels are much faster than one would assume. 3, Rupert was laughing. 4, my hat was floating away like a traumatized lily pad. 5, I was gonna kill him. I emerged, sopping wet, mascara migrating south, with murder in my eyes and river weed in my bodice. Rupert, the absolute degenerate, was applauding. Truly magnificent, he said. You rise from water like a goddess of vengeance. And you, I said, are about to become eel bait. I hurled the wine bottle, missed, hurled the brie, landed in a tree. He offered me his coat. I told him to wrap it around his ego and jump in after me. By the time I returned to the manor, dripping and furious, Algernon had the nerve to ask why I looked like I'd tried to kiss Poseidon. I told him I'd gone for a swim. With an eel? Yes, I replied. It was more charming than most of the men I know. Later, the butler informed me that Lord Rupert had sent flowers. And a note. Forgive me, dearest creature of chaos. I simply could not resist the poetry of you, water and Horace. Shall we dine again tomorrow? I burned it. Then I rewrote it with the words no, never, and take your eel and choke on it. To make matters worse, the servants are now calling me the River Queen. My husband has banned eels from the kitchen, and someone, I suspect the chambermaid, embroidered a pillow with the words, slippery when enraged. So yes, diary, I went on a picnic. I came back soaked, scandalized, and with eel-shaped trauma. Would I do it again? Yes. But next time I'm bringing my own bucket and something venomous inside. Yours in damp vengeance and extremely avoidable flirtations, Lady Cassiopeia Vexleigh-St. James, Wife, witch, walking warning label. Why? There's a sword in the pudding and a Frenchman in my bed, as dictated by Lady Cassiopeia Vexleigh-St. James. Still married, technically, mentally elsewhere. June 2nd, 1786. Written from my chaise lounge, draped in satin, gilt, and someone else's cravat. Dear Diary, if anyone asks how my evening went, please refer them to the cherry trifle, currently skewered with a sword, the Frenchman asleep in my bed, and the trail of discarded gloves leading from the dining room to, well, everywhere. Let us begin, because to untangle this tale, one must start not at the climax, which, I assure you, was spectacular, but at the salmon. Yes, the fish. It was supposed to be a perfectly dull dinner party. Algernon, my husband, my legally tethered burden, my walking beige cravat, had invited the Archbishop of Northgrove, 2 military men, and some painfully sincere baroness named Gwendoline, who uses words like nourishment, unironically. I was expected to host. I had better plans. Unfortunately, I was caught forging a mild case of scarlet fever and was dragged to the table like a martyr in heels. I wore navy silk and diamonds sharp enough to puncture a bishop's ego. I smiled. I listened. I nodded. I died inside. Then the Frenchman arrived. Not invited. Not expected. Definitely not dressed in anything remotely modest. He entered the dining room like he belonged in someone's poem and someone else's bed. Black curls, smirk like treason, accent like honey dipped in sin. He bowed low dramatically. Forgive me, he purred. I was told there would be pudding and possibly politics. I stared. Gwendoline dropped her fork. Algernon choked on his salmon. The Archbishop whispered, Dear God. I whispered, Not here, Your Grace. His name? Etienne de Rochefort. A marquis, a libertine, a menace. He claims he was once exiled from Versailles for seducing a nun and misplacing a cannon. I believe all of it. I tried to remove him. Truly. I said, Monsieur, you are not on the guest list. To which he replied, Madame, I am not on anyone's guest list. That is what makes me so interesting. And then he sat down, at the head of the table, and I let him, because deep down, I am not a good person. Dinner spiraled quickly. Etienne told stories, glorious, scandalous, possibly illegal stories. He asked the Archbishop if he believed in divine temptation. He asked Gwendoline if she'd ever danced naked under a full moon. She blushed so hard she steam-cooked her peas. He kissed my hand and said, Your eyes are like rebellion. I said, My shoe is like judgment. He said, Then punish me. I nearly blacked out from sheer glee. Then came the pudding. The pudding. Cherry trifle, layered high, elegant, innocent, blissfully unaware of what was about to happen. Just as it was being served, Major Pembroke, who had clearly mistaken testosterone for personality, made a joke about France's lack of backbone. Etienne stood, smiled, and drew a sword. A real one, from his coat, like a mad, sexy magician. The Archbishop screamed. Gwendoline fainted. Algernon yelled, To the dungeon, woman! I wasn't even the one holding the sword. Etienne turned to me, calmly, and said, Would you like me to duel him, or simply carve the pudding? I said, Carve first, duel later. He nodded, turned, and plunged the sword directly into the cherry trifle. I have never been more aroused in my life. The dinner dissolved in chaos. The pudding was dead. Gwendoline was revived with brandy. Algernon stormed off muttering something about heresy and tablecloths. And me? I looked at Etienne. He looked at me. And we did not finish dessert. We made it as far as the grand staircase. I lost an earring, he lost his coat. We lost track of what century it was. Now, as I write, he is in my bed, sleeping, beautiful, and entirely mine until breakfast or exile, whichever comes first. The sword is in the kitchen. The trifle has been declared a historical tragedy. Algernon hasn't spoken to me since, which is, as always, delightful. So yes, dear diary, there's a sword in the pudding, a Frenchman in my bed, and a part of me that thinks I've never hosted a more successful dinner. Yours in cherry stains and sheer audacity, Lady Cassiopeia as. Still married, still spectacular,